and welcome. My name is Maria and this is In the Steps of the Vikings channel. I'm currently living here in Denmark, and since I'm also very much fascinated with the Viking age and with Scandinavian legends and culture and traditions in general, I have decided to create this channel in order to share with you my experiences as a foreigner here in Denmark. And what do foreigners do first? Well, they probably learn the language, learn the traditions, the culture of the place they just arrived in, and they travel around. So today's video will be dedicated to a place that is located in the northern suburbs of Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark. It is an ancient burial site and it is called Hvidegårdsgravene. Hvidegårdsgravene. Well, I'm trying my best to pronounce it correctly and I'm probably making lots of mistakes, but in my defense, the Danish pronunciation is, compared to other European languages, is one of the most difficult. So especially if there are Danes who are watching me now, please don't hate me for completely ruining your pronunciation. Believe me, I've tried my best. Since Hvidegårdsgravene is really close to where I live, I will be traveling there by bicycle, and I will be more than happy if you join me on my journey. And if you will choose to stay up until the end of this video, there will be a little surprise for you at the end of it. So please stay with me, and I hope you will enjoy the video. The area here is very green, as you can see, with a lot of lakes, ponds, parks, and fields. We are not far away from the sea, and you can see the coastal line. All this beauty is in the northern suburbs of Copenhagen, and shortly we will be heading on a bicycle towards Kongens district, which is a part of Greater Copenhagen area. Kongens, or as we simply call it Lyngby, is translated into English as the King's Heather Town. Unfortunately, I myself honestly haven't seen here any heather, but maybe indeed when the name was given, the area was full of heather. We don't know though when exactly the name was given. The first record of Lyngby dates to 1348. And as we will see today, people lived in this area long before. In fact, the burial mound, which we are going to visit today, is dated to approximately year 1000 before Christ, which makes it a remarkable tomb from the Bronze Age. While you enjoy the beautiful nature of this area, let me tell you a little bit about the history of burial mounds. Burial mounds were in use here in Scandinavia from the Stone Age until the 11th century, which is the Viking Age, and they figure heavily in Old Norse religions. For example, they were used for ancestral worship, which is an important practice in Norse culture. In their original state, they usually look like small, man-made hills or hillocks. Unfortunately, many of them have been damaged by the deeds of a human, like road constructions or agricultural works. This is, by the way, true for the place that we are about to visit. So only Denmark has about 26,000 preserved burial mounds, while the oldest one is 5,000 years old. And since 1937, burial mounds are protected by law in Denmark, and they are officially supervised by the Danish Agency for Culture. Those hill-like burial sites are greatly vary in designs, depending on the cultural traditions of the era in which they were constructed. Remember, we are speaking about thousands of years in which such form of burial was practiced, and of course, culture and traditions will be constantly evolving. The inside of the tombs may contain either single graves or collective graves. Sometimes also cremation took place, again depending on the era and also on geographical location. It was believed that the consuming force of fire transfers the person to Valhalla. Another interesting fact is that many burial mounds in Scandinavia show a continuation of use from Stone Age to Viking Age. So today's site is called Hvidegårdsgravene. As someone who is learning Danish, I couldn't miss that the name starts with HVID, which means white in Danish. The entire name can be then translated as White Farm Graves. And yes, originally there were several graves. I mean, unfortunately, they didn't survive. They were destroyed by agricultural works. So back focusing on this white farm graves, I first thought that the site must have been white. Maybe white flowers were growing on top of the mounds, like it was shown by Peter Jackson in The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, where Theoden, the king of Rohan, is visiting burial mounds of his family to say goodbye to his only son. In the movies, the mounds are covered with white flowers. Theoden then says that they always were growing on graves of his family. We also know that pyramids were white. They were covered with white plates of polished limestone so that they shine when sun rays hit them. Some researchers believe that Bronze Age burial mounds might have also been originally covered with white stones, therefore the hills would be visible from distance and appear more impressive. Perhaps they also served as landmark sites. However, after doing some research, I have discovered that the name Hvidegården, White Farm, has nothing to do with the color white. The farm was originally named after a place that was called Vikings, which presumably in turn has its name after an old V, which means a holy place. Over time, the name has been corrupt to Hvidegården. So we are basically now in some kind of a holy place. And by the way, meanwhile, we have arrived to our destination. The footage is taken with the drone. Quite a few trees are growing on top of this mound. Unfortunately, they are hiding the hill. Because of the trees, the gravesite is not really visible from air as well as not from a distance. In fact, you really need to know where is the place to get there. I had to cycle through woods to get to an open area with horse fields. Our mound is surrounded by those fields, concealed under trees. I will shortly finish with drone and climb this hill, and we will see what's beneath the trees. Hard to say if 3,000 years ago it looked the same way. Maybe indeed it was covered with stones, as some researchers suggest. On 14th of August 1845, the Museum of Nordic Antiquities, today's National Museum, received a letter informing that a man in Ljungby has today found an undamaged giant grave, and that under the top large stone you can see a sword sticking out. The man was a farmer here at Hvidegården named Erik Hansen, who had been digging out soil from the mound for filling around the farm. The mound, by the way, was built of turf. In the middle of the mound he came across some large stones. He picked up the western one and saw brown cloth and a sword. He realized that it was probably an important finding because a lot of Bronze Age objects has previously been found in other mounds around Hvidegården. As I said before, there were more mounds. To be precise, originally there were 12 mounds. Each was up to 7 meters high, with a diameter between 20 to 30 meters. In any case, the authorities were contacted and guard was kept at the grave until people from the museum arrived. Eventually, this gravesite became one of the few burial mounds from this time that were opened and explored by professionals. As a thank you for reporting his find, the farmer received a silver cup with an inscription. He also was presented with Guideline to Nordic Antiquity work written by Danish archaeologist Christian Jorgensen Thomsen. Worth mentioning that it was in this work that Thomsen famously first ever divided ancient times into 3 major sections: Stone Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age, that are now used internationally. I have created an image so that it would be easier to understand what was found inside the hill. So, within the mound, some stones were buried. Those stones form a coffin. Magnus Petersen, one of the museum's workers, drew this coffin. Its sides are formed by upright flat stones on which large carved stones rested. The bottom is covered with small flint stones. Inside this coffin was lying a cowhide with brown cloth that wrapped the burnt bones of a man. Later, Magnus Petersen will mention in his memoirs that when they were opening the grave,
lightning began to crackle and thunderstorm roll over the intruders, as if some magical power and unknown gods were still protecting this grave. And indeed, the buried man well might have been a sorcerer, judging by the things that were found in his grave. His costume was quite distinct from other known Bronze Age costumes. For example, he had a strange tongue-shaped piece of cloth. Similar attribute of a costume was observed in bronze statuettes from the same time that were found on the other side of Zealand, about 80 kilometers away. Those figures are believed to be idols, and therefore the costume of the buried here man well might have been a cult costume, indicating that he might have been a religious leader or a sorcerer. The grave goods consisted of a bronze sword in a leather scabbard with accompanying leather belt and a small leather bag that had a completely unique closing mechanism consisting of a small opposed leather loops held together by an inserted bronze pin. It is basically Denmark's first known zipper. This bag also had a belt, as the image shows. I was so much amazed by this ancient Bronze Age bag and this zipper that I've decided to construct a version of my own. Of course, the original bag was made out of leather. In my case, I just had to use the materials which I had at home. So the loops are, for instance, made out of ribbon. And perhaps that wasn't the best choice of a material because the pin gets caught on. So that's the downside of this bag. But in general, altogether, it works, and it works quite well. And in fact, I'm planning on using this bag, maybe for makeup. You can see how I'm showing you how exactly it was done, how exactly the zipper is functioning here. And as I said, I quite like it. I'm unzipping the bag now, and maybe it will inspire someone else to make a bag like it. It takes a little bit time to completely open the bag because the pin occasionally gets caught on the ribbon. I just want to show you the inside of this bag. Today, by the way, the wizard's bag with the zipper is on display at the National Museum. Inside this unique bag were a lot of small items. A piece of amber, a flint knife 9 3 centimeters long sewn into gut or bladder, a bronze razor blade, a pair of bronze tweezers, a wooden cube, snake's tail, a Mediterranean conch or a seashell, falcon's claw, left lower jaw of a squirrel, and some pebbles wrapped in a piece of bladder or intestine. The strange objects may have functioned as a man's amulets or perhaps a collection of ritual probes with which a wizard established contact with the spirit world. In addition, a bark bucket that probably contained food or drink was found in the grave. Judging by all those objects, we can assume that the man was 3,000-year-old Ljungberg's big man. He could have been a chieftain, or a doctor, or a sorcerer, or perhaps he played those roles all together. And so he was laid to rest in a huge mound on the ridge, overlooking all his land and surrounded by the mounds of his family. I have read that only 2 mounds out of 12 originally existing here mounds were found. So I tried to find the second mound, unfortunately no success so far. If you know where the second mound is, or maybe you have even found it already, please write down in the comment section. Before we drive too far away, I want to get back to the surprise that I have promised in the beginning of the video. So a surprise is a little game where I hide a capsule and you find it. The capsule that I have made for this video is consisting of a small bottle that both function as a container and a pendant. I have added a little witch as a decorative element to the bottle. After all, we suspect that the man buried here was a sorcerer. The bottle is filled with catnip seeds that were collected in my garden. I find that the catnip plant is very useful. It helps treat headaches, for example, and I'm sure that ancient doctors that treated people with herbs knew about the positive qualities of this plant. Finally, I have added a seashell that I collected at the Mediterranean shore. It has a different shape from the Mediterranean shell that was found in this grave, but my shell is also from the same sea and has a unique shape. Wonder how the buried wizard got his shell. Maybe he was also a traveler, or maybe someone else traveled. In any case, I find it quite impressive because we are speaking about Bronze Age. The capsule is hidden in one of the trees hollow. Good luck finding it. And please don't forget to leave a comment if you have found this capsule. This is my first video, and I know there are a lot of things where I can improve and a lot more for me to learn on how to make a good video blog. But if you enjoyed my work so far, please hit the like button, and if you find this content useful, consider subscribing to the channel so that you won't miss other videos and I will be encouraged to continue. While looking for the second mound, and not far away from the graveside, I found a fireplace. So I have decided to finish my journey with a nice fire. Thanks for watching and hope to see you again soon.